Hi guys, and welcome to the Glory Stories podcast. I'm Gareth Morgan, and it is great to have you with us as always. Now, in today's episode, we're continuing our 30th anniversary mini-series by chatting to none other than the club's very first general manager, Roger Lefort. And when I say general manager, I really do mean it, because there wasn't much that Roger was not involved with during the formative years of the club, from securing a playing venue and painting seats to clinching sponsorship deals and signing players. Roger basically had a hand in pretty much everything. He also once skydived into Perth Oval as part of the pre-match entertainment. And I just had to start our chat by asking him how and why. So without any further ado, let's get into what was a really enjoyable chat with another Glory legend. This is Roger Lefort. Roger, thank you very much indeed for your time, mate. It's much appreciated.
Pleasure.
Rather than sort of starting traditionally with your background, which we will come to shortly, and then how you got involved with the club, I want to go for the spectacular first. Now, I need you to explain to me how, as the club's inaugural general manager, you ended up skydiving into Perth Oval as part of the pre-match entertainment, because this is a story that we need to just get straight into.
Yeah, well, I kind of had a side bet with one of the players that I wouldn't dare do it. And we did. I mean, I did it and regretted it ever since. It's not exciting. You know, it looks as if you're falling out of the sky. Well, that's exactly what you're doing. That's exactly what it feels like.
It was tandem, I'm presuming.
It was tandem.
It wasn't solo.
I wasn't quite that brave. But it was down with a heavy bump. Just as we were about to land, the bloke said, "You put your feet this way or this way," and then the wind changed with the wind from the stand, and we went down with quite a thump.
And you had family members in the ground at the time?
My wife was there, she didn't know. My youngest son was in the crowd shouting, "You fat bastard," which was not very nice. But no, it was done. It was one of those things you do.
And then there was a big reveal when you finally disentangled?
What do you mean? Yeah, no, it really was me. But it was Christmas, I think, and somebody else came down as Santa Claus. I'm not sure what I was supposed to be.
Fantastic. Well, not many club employees can have that as a claim to fame. As we said, let's back up a little bit. So you came over from the UK in the early 80s, and you hadn't worked in football previously, from what I understand, but you were obviously a big fan of the sport.
Yeah, the kids played soccer in England, and I was a bit involved with that, not very much, but I should just go along and cheer them on, as parents often do. But nothing, I wasn't of any consequence or involved in any consequence. Of course I was of some consequence, but we weren't involved in soccer over there, no. Not in any administrative way.
And then when you got here and your kids are still playing, you made that criminal mistake of when somebody comes up to you at a local football club and says, "Would you be interested in being on the committee?" And you crumbled.
I did. I went straight in with both feet, and there we are. We started with Wembley Downs Junior Soccer Club, and we coached the children, and I did actually do a lot of the courses there and did the right thing. And then went on from there. We went on from the junior. I was then asked if I was interested in going on the junior committee of West Australian junior football soccer, of which there were probably about 8,000 or 9,000 children. So I went on there, and we did a radio show, which I expect you heard, didn't you, Gareth?
With John O'Connell.
Oh, he was my assistant.
There we go.
Yeah, it was with John O'Connell, you're quite right. And I did that for a while, and then I was asked if I would put up as president, which I did, and I was that for probably 3 or 4 years, not quite sure. And then the fun started.
Did you get involved? You were involved with the Perth Kangaroos as well, weren't you, in some capacity?
I was. It was very complicated, very involved at the beginning. We had the soccer administration of WA called SAWA, of which we had the president of the juniors, the president of the amateurs, and the president of the semi-pros on there, and 3 independent people. So we had a panel of 6 of us, a board of 6 of us. And at the time, Tom Mackay was the president of SAWA, the overall body, and you asked me to go back 30 years. and the semi-professionals put in a team under Frank Schaefer, I think it was, into the Singapore League, which they won easily. And the home games were quite successful, had good crowds, and they used to go away to Singapore every other week, as most teams did. But I believe the arrangement they made was like they used to pay for the Singaporeans to come here to Perth, which was very expensive, which they didn't have, and eventually it was about to wind up. And then Nick Tyner and Paul Afkos stepped in and said we'd like to help on certain conditions, on conditions that Tom Mackay resign as president, on condition that the players all play for nothing, and Gary coached for nothing, and I kind of stood in as looking after the administration of it for nothing. So it was all kind of very voluntary. I mean, the players did a remarkable job when you think that they had got their own jobs, and there they were travelling away every other week at their own kind of expense, if you like. But it worked, and we actually won the competition over in Singapore. And then they selected a team which was representative of Singapore, of which Paul Strederick was selected from Perth. And we went over to the finals, and I went with him.
So that's brought you into the sort of Tanner Afkos orbit as such. You then end up being appointed Glory's first general manager when the club is formed. Was there an interview process, or was it a case of Nick just saying you do it?
I was also then CEO of the Sour, if you like.
Right.
All very voluntary stuff. And we always wanted to get into the National Soccer League, as it was known then. And golly, now you're asking, what we did was we applied when Tom Mackay was still president, and we went over to see Peter Russell at Soccer Australia. We went to see the chairman. None of them wanted a bar of us over here. We even made a gesture of we'll pay part of the cost for some of the teams to come over, in the hope that they would allow us to get into the league. But eventually that didn't work either. So then it came to the elections for the Soccer Australia committee. One of the guys was David Hill, ex-chairman of ABC, and there was Peter, I can't remember his name now. There were two or three others that were vying for the chairman's job. And,
That's all good.
And we had he came over here to WA, David Hill, and said that, I want you in it can only be a national competition if you guys come in. So I think they got the support of a lot of the people over here. And then I was sitting down watching the pre-election, the talk from all the prospective chairmen, and we watched that, and it was over and the debate took place. And then my phone rang at home, and it was David Hill. Much to my surprise, I'd just been watching him on television. And in those days, the Junior Soccer Association had a separate vote. They had one vote directly with Soccer Australia, and I think WA had another 3 or 4, whatever it was. So our vote was quite important. So that's why he phoned me up to say that he would put a national team in if he became chairman. So I spoke together with Lou Rickey at the time, who was chairman at the time. We went over to the AGM of the Soccer Australia, changed names so many times, Soccer Australia, and David was elected president, as chairman. And he said, look, we want to get you in. And we said, okay, well, when are you talking about? He said, about 3 or 4 months. And it was in no time at all. So we rushed back and we advertised for a team to go into the National League. We had one response initially, which was called Arena Investments, which was Nick Tyner and Paul Afkos. We had no other applications apart from one which came after the closing date. So we had to kind of turn that to one side. But we selected an independent group of people to do the interviewing, and it was a proper thorough interview. We had Brian Rakic from the WACA, somebody from football, somebody from the Ministry of Sport. So we had quite a group of people doing the interviewing of the potential people, although there was only one group to interview, and that was Arena Investments, Nick Tyner and Paul Afkos. And that's when they went through all of their finances. They went through absolutely everything. It was very, very thorough. And they were appointed or selected on the basis that they had put up the best or the only decent suggestion of how they would get in and work a National League team. So they did, and they advertised for a general manager. So I put my hand up, of course, and I think Paul was keener to have me as general manager than Nick was. Anyway, I got the job, and then we appointed a coach. I think it was that way around, or we might have appointed a coach to me. But anyway, then we appointed Gary Morocchi and Michael Brennan, his assistant coach, he chose. And they were brilliant. I mean, our first year, I think the first game we had, we must have had 6,000 or 7,000 people. You probably got better records than I can remember when it was a long time ago. And we just went from there. We played in the first season, and Gary was still coaching the second season. And then he was asked to leave, or we didn't renew his contract, which was very sad because Gary was doing really well. And we came fit in the first year, which was pretty good considering we were playing against all the heavyweights in the Eastern States. And it progressed from there. We got bigger and bigger and bigger. I was over in England, and Bert Stanger, as you probably know, was appointed coach, and I was asked if I would interview him when I was over in England, which I did, and he knew everything about everybody. I mean, he was brilliant from day one, and he was brilliant the day he left. And that's how it all came about, and that's how we ended up by doing what we did, and we ended up with crowds that nobody had even thought of that you could possibly get at a game over here. In fact, I mean, our biggest crowd was 42,000 at the grand final, the one we lost.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah. You've galloped wildly, Roger. I love the way you've taken this and you've galloped off. But I just wanted to go back to basically, I just want to, if you could paint a picture of,
sure.
I think you had a little office of some sort, or at least a desk. I just want to get an image of you day one. You sit down, you've got, as far as I understand it, no club name, no club colours, no ground, no players.
No staff.
And you and I think maybe a part-time assistant or something. And
we did. And then we actually progressed to, I think there were 3 of us in the end that ran the whole thing. But you've also got to bear in mind that we only had one team. We didn't have the women's team. We didn't have any juniors teams. We had nothing. We just had one team to concentrate on. So, I mean, we just had a small office at Perry Lakes. We took over some of the amateurs' offices and we bowled in there. And where do we go from here? We started signing up players. We looked for a ground. I went out looking around. We even looked up at here, I think at Mirrabooka. We looked at some football grounds, and we looked at Macedonia Park as a ground as well, where the Kangaroos actually played. And eventually we persuaded East Perth to do a deal where they played at Leaderville and we played at East Perth, as it was still called then.
And you had to do some work on the ground, didn't you?
The ground was atrocious. It was, up until about a week or 2 weeks beforehand, there were still ducks floating on the middle of the pitch after the rain. But a lot of work was done. We had Paul Afkos's company built some stands on the eastern side, the opposite side to the grandstand. And they turned out to be pretty good, actually. And we had the shed, of course, which was made into an area for the noisy shed boys down there, which was really good. And then we did eventually get some seats down the southern end, which is away from the shed end. And they actually came from Belmont, which was the home of baseball. So we bought their seats down there. And that was it. It was a small, tight little community. We knew all the families, we knew the children, and they all got on like a house on fire.
As someone that had come from the sort of traditional English football background, what were your thoughts on the name and the colours? Because obviously they're far from traditional.
They are. I actually liked the name from day one. I thought it was quite a good name, Perth Glory. I used to phone up some of the sponsors and say, "This is Perth Glory here." It was a bit difficult. We were obviously not known by anybody. We did have 1,000 people at the launch for lunch, which was pretty good. We got our sponsors fairly quickly, and a lot of them were probably kind of blackmailed into becoming a sponsor of Perth Glory. But overall, it ran really well. There was a small amount of people, small place, small. And the night before the first game, I thought, oh God, is this ever going to work? I made one very, very big mistake. When we sold the tickets through Ticketmaster, as it was then, I hadn't allowed for the fact that the aisles weren't to be included as seats. So people were looking for their seats and they weren't any available. They were just aisles.
And was that something, did you realise that the night before or only on the day?
No, on the day. When somebody said, I haven't got a seat. Yeah.
Now, your remit was, as you've explained, was pretty wide, and it did include a little bit of getting involved in recruitment, because as I understand it, Vinco was someone that you had a big hand in bringing to the club.
Yeah, we did. They were all local players apart from Vinco, and Gary particularly wanted Vinco, who had played in the Olympic team. So we did recruit him, and he came over and he actually helped paint the seats. He was a good boy. He was there and he never complained. So he was the first interstate player to come over, and then after that we got involved with quite a few more. But it was a lot of the players were players that I'd known when my kids were playing. So I knew them and I knew their parents. So they came in, one or two of them with their parents, and we were negotiating with them about a contract. I mean, something that a few years earlier would have just been a dream.
It's, like I said, it's the most general of general manager roles. Unbelievable in terms of the breadth of what you had to do. This is an interesting one. You've played a series of pre-season friendlies, Ashfield, Morley Windmills,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
And Sampdoria. Now, just to put this into context, Sampdoria at the time, I know they've fallen on harder times now, one of probably the best 3 or 4 teams in Europe and
Yeah.
therefore the world at
Yeah.
that time. How on earth, as a start-up club in Western Australia, do you manage to get Sampdoria to come and play a friendly?
Charm, mostly. No, it was actually Gary's. It was Gary's doing. His friend who played for Sampdoria, I cannot remember his name. I feel dreadful. He lived down in City Beach, and he played for Sampdoria. And I think Gary knew him and persuaded them to come to us. I don't know what he did, but it was something pretty good to get them to come and play over in Perth.
As well as excitement at having a club of that stature come into play, was there a little bit of trepidation in the sense that, you know, we could get a bit of a hide in here?
Yeah, obviously there is when you first start with anything. And I think the general public at the beginning thought that we were going to be thrashed by the eastern states instead of ending up 5th in the first year. Well, you just don't know. I mean, we had a good team. The players had played together mostly with the Kangaroos. All they ever wanted to do was play for a National League team over here. So they gave it everything. They played with their heart. The money was not the major factor as far as they were concerned. So it made it a bit easier in a way that they desperately wanted to play. So that's how we recruited our first team. But yeah, there's always, are we going to do it? Can we manage? Are we up there with the big boys in the eastern states? You know, the Marconis and the likes of those. But we did. We coped very well in the first couple of years.
And Nick Tanner's message, it seems to me, from day one was always that this has to be an event. As well as a football match, we need to be a hot ticket item in the sense that we put on an event. And I'm guessing as well as your skydiving, you must have played quite a key role in that.
He didn't know I was doing it. He didn't know I was doing it. Otherwise, he would encourage me to have done it solo, I think.
Without the parachute.
Without the parachute, probably. No, it was to be. It was an event. It was spectacular, and we had all sorts of entertainment, lots of musical entertainment. The music was loud, probably far too loud for some people, but it was. People came along to the event as much as they almost did to see the football game. And it wasn't incidental, but it was important. The entertainment was important as well, and it worked. There's no doubt about it. It worked.
And in terms of the actual day of that first game against Olympic, how early were you at Perth Oval? I've got visions of you opening the place up at 5 a.m. because you can't sleep.
I don't think I slept very well. I mean, we didn't have all of our signage ready, and I thought, oh God, we've got signage to do. Are the players all going to be there, and is it going to start on time? But yeah, everything really, apart from the seats that weren't there, ran pretty well.
The seats that you'd sold that didn't exist.
Exactly. Well, we made our money out of them anyway.
Great business.
Yeah, it
Great
is.
business. You mentioned the shed a couple of moments ago as well. How exciting was it to watch that develop as a kind of really a phenomenon in Australian football?
The shed actually was an important part of what happened with Glory. I mean, it helped shape Perth Glory. Basil Hanna, the name you probably know, was one of the instigators of what happened down there, and he was brilliant. And you probably don't even know that they used to have a show in the city called the Best of British, and Basil and his singers came along there one year and actually went on the stage, but they didn't sing what they sang in the shed. They sang something quite different, quite acceptable.
Wow!
But it was it was the radio. We had a 4-page lift out in the west. We just couldn't go wrong.
Now, during the early days, and I think possibly later as well, you used to travel with the team?
I did. I used to go away because I used to just love watching them play. I used to go away, several times a year.
And some of those away trips a little bit dicey, could it be said? Some of the away venues that you had to go to back in those early days?
Melbourne Knights in particular was one that we had a bit of trouble with. When an incident happened and we actually had to have the guards and the police to see us to our bus, and I think they were throwing stones at us. But most of them were pretty good. Got to see New Zealand and all the other teams in the eastern states. It was good.
And what about favourite players, Roger? I know this is probably a tough question. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be one. You can throw multiples in, but inevitably, when you work with people for considerable period of time, there's some that become favourites.
The Navens were always good. Gareth Naven, the captain, was always absolutely brilliant. And we used to pay them by cheque in those days. They used to come in on a Friday and queue up, and they used to get their cheque, add up all the money that they're entitled to. And I could never tell the Navens apart. So the two Navens would come in one after another. And I thought, well, that's funny, they're not getting the same amount of money. What do I give to whom? I just call them knaves, that was all, and they used to answer to that. But I did tell them apart eventually. But they were all good. I mean, there were no favourites really. I mean, I liked them all. They all had their good points. I got on really well with the players. I had a lot of time for them, I must say.
So you end up spending roughly 6 years in that GM role. When you put that into the sort of context of your wider career, how much of a kind of life highlight was that time at the club?
Well, what kid wouldn't want to grow up and run a soccer club as his job? I mean, it was a huge highlight, and it was good. There was a lot of involvement with the media, an awful lot which I hadn't been used to, but it was good. It was exciting. It was exciting. It was exciting to go to the games, the home games and the away games. That was great fun. Really enjoyed it until towards the end.
We might leave the end.
My end.
I think.
Yeah.
I think we might finish on a high, shall we?
I think that's a good idea. That was really enjoyable. I'd do it all again if I had the chance, and I still see one or two other players around. Great. Really the best bunch of blokes you could have, truly.
And the club, I get the feeling the club still has a place in the heart, does it?
Well, it does. It's just got this out of mothball. It's somewhere at the back of the cupboard. But yeah, I mean, it's not quite as high on the list as Bournemouth, but pretty close.